All right. Well, hello folks, and welcome to this quick coding session. Not really a marathon. I'll probably only be here for an hour or so, maybe an hour or two. But I thought I would come on. It gives me a chance to say hello and to check in and let you know what's happening. I'm going to be doing a wee bit of bug fixing here, and it's just for a website that I've been doing some work on. And with your permission, I'd like to make a start. So, it's going back to this really difficult page that I've been working on, and it is it's a cracker. Let me find some music. So anyway, yeah, I'm having a couple of wee challenges with a page that I've been working on. It's a very JavaScript intensive thing, and I'd like to get this thing happening. So let me just start off by laying down the scene. Okay, so I've got no menu items, and I've got no special prices. Okay. So, so this page has a few bugs, and I'm going to just show you what the bugs are, and then I'll try and see if I can fix the thing. So, I'm going to just say first item. I'm going to say first item description. First item optional note. It's going to have a normal price of, let's say, 77, and there is the first item, and that's not too bad, you know. Now let's add another menu item. I hope my sound's okay. So far so good, right? Second item description. Second item optional note. And for this one we're going to have special prices. Small is going to be 11. Medium is going to be 22. Large is going to be 33. And that'll do that. Right, 2 items, okay. Let's do one more. So far it looks reasonable. Okay. So with this one, it's going to have a price of 88. Alright, cool. So, what I'm going to do now, I'll just quickly get this thing sorted out, and then we'll have a little chat about the broader picture. So I'm going to make a function up called fix. I'm going to echo ahoy. So let's head to menu items fix, and it says ahoy. Alright, so what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to say all items is this get ID. Now if I say JSON all items, oh, we get that. And now I'm going to say all special prices is this model get Okay, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to say data all items is that, then data all special prices is that, and okay, in fact I'm an idiot. I am an idiot. Okay, let's just echo JSON encode, or actually let's just echo JSON all items. It gives us this. Now I'm going to copy this and I'm going to say sample data all items.php. Perfect. Now I'm gonna say JSON. I don't even need to say echo. There's my special prices. So I'm gonna say sample data special prices. Chuck that in. Okay, so now if I say menu items JSON is this view sample data all items, and I'm gonna var dump menu items JSON. That's good. Special prices JSON is this view sample data special prices. Alright, let's do a little var dump on that. So basically all I'm doing is I'm setting up a little situation where I can quickly add and delete items if I want to. So for example, if I say SQL 1 is truncate menu items this model query, pass in the SQL, and then I'm gonna say whoops, oh gee, alright. Okay, so I'm going to echo done with a die statement, and that should have deleted those tables. You can see that that one's clear, and we can see that this one is clear. But now I'm going to say data is JSON decode menu okay, so this is an object. So as row, I'm going to say data Okay. I'm going to say that data is an array of this row thing. I'm going to say this model insert that data into menu items. And then I'll do the same again. Special prices. So sample data, special prices. Alright, now I'll unset rows and I'll unset data. Okay, insert menu items, special prices. Okay, now I'm just going to echo ready. Alright, so what that should do is basically pardon me, it's repopulating, and what that means is that I'm now able to test this thing inside out, and whenever things go wrong I can just run this little thing here and everything is cool. That's all that's about, you know. So let's now that I've laid out the groundwork, I'm going to see if I can get some kind of fault happening, you know. So right away you can see here that our items table is not right. Alright, Gear is here. Hello to you, Gear. Nice to see you. And Apophis, it's very nice to see you. I had your message and I apologise for not getting in touch, and I think you're absolutely right, you know. What's happening is fantastic and I'm loving your work, man. It's really great. Anyway, I'm going to have to finish this thing, otherwise I won't be eating much, you know. So this page has an error. I've added 3 items. You can see that the second one is repeating here. It's just not right at all, you know. So I'm going to see if I can fix this, if that's okay. I've got an idea of how to do this. The first thing I'm going to do is send this to the right side, which just feels better. Okay, now I'm going to hit this network tab and go like this. Okay. Okay, so there's something that's going to API get menu items. So I'm going to search for API. Now going to go like that. Okay, so I'm going to inspect here. Right, I think there's an event listener here somewhere. So let's have a little look for items, right, something like that. Okay, now I am going to alert ahoy and then just hit return. And you see how that says ahoy? That tells me that I'm on the right place. It was kind of a lucky guess, right? So now I want to see exactly what is being sent so that I can reproduce this stuff. So I'm going to console.log the token. I'll console.log the target URL. I'm going to console.log json.stringify params. So now if I open up the console and do this and expand, you can see we have some stuff. So now I'm going to put all of that in here. So this is what's being sent across. Okay. There we go. So I'm now able to simulate that thing but isolate it so I can see exactly what's happening. So you can see that it's on API get menu items. Now I'm going to go to this API thing here, and I can see here that there's a before hook called check for special prices. So let me go to check for special prices, and I'm going to just echo howdy with a die statement. I'm pretty sure that'll work. There you go. So here we are, finally we've found the area that is giving us the issue here. Now right here we've got a table join that gives us some rows. I'm going to echo JSON rows and then true. And if I do that, you can see the type of results that we get. So it's basically just a table join. We've got our first item, our second item. Oh, now look at that, the second item repeats, see that? And then we've got our third item. The second item has got these special prices going on, whereas the first item has got a special price ID of null. So whatever I've done here, it's just no working. So I'm going to take all of that out, and what I'm going to do in plain English is build up an array of special prices. So to do that, I'm going to say for each rows as row. Now we can say JSON row, have a little send, and we get a pretty good idea of what a thing looks like. Now to make sure we have a gig, I'm going to say if is set row. Now have a look here, do you see how it says special price ID null? So let's say special price ID. So if we have a row, then and only then we're going to echo out that row. So here we go, and you can see that that has worked, and you can see that we've also got what looks like an ID here. Okay, that ID kind of concerns me a wee bit. Why would it have an ID of 12? Now give me a moment. It says item ID is 12. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, fine. Okay. So if I go to the store items table, we should see that the second item has got an ID of 12. So menu items, here's the second item. It does indeed have an ID of 12. That's good, right? So now what we're going to do is let's just var dump that row this time with a die statement, and you'll see that it's an object, and it's an object that contains a special price ID. So I might as well just get these things out into the open, you know. So I'm going to say special price ID is row, special price ID. And the other things we've got is a special description is row, special description. And then lastly, I've got a special price is row, special price. Okay, and I'm going to test it by just echoing out the special price and then a little die statement. Alright. Right, that's cool. So that looks about right, okay. We've also got an item ID. So I'll just call this the menu item ID, which is probably going to be row ID. I'm going to echo the menu item ID with a die statement, and it's going to give me a 12, which we now know is correct, okay. So now what I'm going to do is, if I just var dump special prices, well, it should say, I don't know what you're talking about. And it does say that, right? So let's set an array called special prices, and we'll just make it an empty array. So now when I var dump that, it's just this empty array of special prices, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if not is set special prices with a key of menu item ID, then create an array of special prices for this menu item. But if we do have one set, then build onto the existing array of special prices for this item. The hardest part of web development is just this part here. This is the clever part, you know, saying it in plain English, right? Or in your own language, whatever it may be. Okay, now let's just try a little experiment. I'm going to put a die statement in here, and I'm going to just echo create array of special prices, and here I'm going to echo build onto existing array of special prices. That's all we're looking for here. So if I hit send, you can see that says create array of special prices, create array of special prices, create array of special prices. Okay, fine. So let's now see if we can actually do something with this. I'm going to say special price data, and I'll just say special price ID is special price ID, and I'm going to go through the three of these. So the next one is going to be special description, the last one is going to be special price. Okay, so that is our special price data. We can do a little JSON on our special price data with a true thing, and it's going to give us something like that. So it's an array of stuff, you know. So now I'm going to say special prices with a key of menu item ID equals special price data. Okay, so now when we hit send here, you'll see it says create an array of special prices. There's one. Build onto existing array, there's two. Build onto existing array, there's three. So now we're starting to get what looks like some pretty good logic here. So the next thing that we're going to do is this building onto existing array of special prices. So I'm going to add some square brackets here. I'm going to say JSON special prices, send it. So that's our ID, and we've got an array which contains an object for each special price thing. So if we're talking about building onto one of these, well, let's clarify this data again. There's no point in repeating ourselves. So we can chuck this up here. If you want to save a line, that's cool as well. You can just go like that. So, how you like me now? And then we're gonna go like this. Now, if it's not set, we create it. Otherwise, we build onto it. But is that not exactly the same anyway? I do believe it is. So, in that case, there we go. Okay. So now, what have we just done? We've built up an array of all of the special prices for these menu items here. And we've obviously got a thing called rows. If I say JSON rows true, you'll see that we've got these rows. Now look at this, it says first item, it says second item, and on we go, right? It repeats the second item, and that's not too cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say results is an empty array, which is kind of good for avoiding errors. And I'm going to say for each rows as row. Okay. Now, let's have a think about this. Okay. All right. Caveman coding. Processed item IDs is going to be an empty array. Now, when we loop through one of these rows here, our item ID is obviously going to be row ID, so we can echo the item ID with a die statement. It's going to give us something like this. And I'm going to say if not is set. No, pardon me. If not in array, that is the item ID is not in the array of processed item IDs. Then I'm going to say add item ID to results like that. And I'm going to say processed item IDs equals item ID. Alright, so let's now send that. So now you can see it says add 11 to results, add 12 to results, add 13 to results, which is good, right? That's kind of what we want to do. So now we are going to say results. The results is an array, so we do square brackets, and it's going to be whatever's on that row. And I'm going to take this out, and then down here I'm going to say JSON results true and hit send. So now you can see we've got our first item here, then we've got our second item, then we've got our third item. Okay, so we've solved one problem, but of course we have to add in our special prices. So what we're going to do then is we're going to say, right, first of all, if we var dump this row with a die statement, you'll see that row is an object. So I'm going to say if is set special prices with a key of this item ID. Then I'm going to say row, now keeping in mind that row is an object, right? I'm going to say row special prices equals special prices with a key of that item ID. And only after I've clarified that, at that point, we'll build onto the row. So here we go. So the first item looks cool. The second item, now you can see we've got the special prices appearing and they look beautiful. Third item is all back to normal. The next thing I want to do is I want to unset this stuff. It has served its purpose. So I'm going to unset row. So that is our special price ID. I'm going to unset row. The next one is special description. And then I'm going to unset row special price. Okay, so now if we hit send, you can see our first item looks beautiful. The price is here, the description, there is no more junk data. The second item looks really good. We've got a price, the price says 0, but we've got those all important special prices and there they are. And then we've got the third item. So that looks absolutely fantastic. I think that's exactly what I was hoping to get this thing doing, okay? So all that remains with this is a little cleanup. It's kind of an unusual way of coding for me, this. In the past I would have done multiple queries, but now that we've got the query builder, I'm doing things with just one query, you know. So all that remains is we do an HTTP response code of 200, and then we're going to echo JSON encode results with a die statement. Okay, so now if I hit send, we get that. Now it looks a bit mad, but if I choose JSON, you can see it's all formatted perfectly. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the page that had the error earlier on, and I'm going to refresh. Click in here, and you can see that we do have, unfortunately, a wee bit of a challenge going on here. It's just no working, basically. So let's now go to this menu items thing here. Alright, now I'm going to just console.log hey. We're going to refresh, expand. You can see that it says hey, right? So now that we've got that, I'm going to console.log http response text, and maybe we'll even console.log a few little stars underneath it. All of that is going to be helpful. So there you go. So you can see the response that has now arrived. Here it is right here, okay? Now, the next thing is we've got a thing called menu items here. Now I am going to console.log menu items.length. If it says 3, that's a good sign. If it does not, then we have a problem. And it does say 3, so that's excellent. So now we're going to go to add item to row. So here it is right here. And if you look at the JavaScript error, it says that there's an error on 129, which is something to do with, well, it looks like something to do with special prices, I don't know. But basically this whole thing is drawing a table row. That's what that's doing, you know. So what I'm going to do is completely comment it out. And I'm going to say, hey man, you have, and I'm going to console.log json.stringify menu item object. So menu item object. Alright. So if we go back here, we're going to refresh. We're going to expand. Keep an eye on the comments here. And it says, hey man, you have. And you can see what one of these things looks like. In fact, there's 3 of them. So we've got an ID, an item title, an item description, and a few other things, right? Now, I think it might be running into difficulties when there's a point here where it's trying to do something with special prices, but we may not have special prices for a certain item, you know. So what I'm going to do with that, okay, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just say if not is set row special prices, then row special prices is an empty array. Now what that should do is it means that every item gets special prices declared, even if it's just an empty array. And that is going to be a little bit more consistent when it comes to this thing here. So if we go back to the page and expand, see how it says special prices, right? Now and as you can see now, it's working perfectly. It's working 100% perfectly. The only thing that I would change is on our special prices thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is the 5th one along. I'll change that to text center. So there's a wee hyphen and I just wanted it centered, and that looks absolutely beautiful. Ah, I love it. I love it. Now, earlier on at the start of this, I made a thing that allows me to reset this thing and do some experimentation and whatnot. I want to just test this. So if I remove here, I'm going to refresh. Yep, that looks good. And I'm going to remove here and refresh. And we'll go like that. That looks good. Now let me look at menu items. There should be one item. There it is. I'm now going to look at menu items special prices. There should be none. That's perfect. So that's looking pretty good. Now the cool thing about this little situation is that I can go menus, fix and repopulate. At least. Okay. Alright. So here we are again, and all of our data has been reset. Everything here looks beautiful. The remove feature works a charm. I think add item works as well. And that's all looking pretty good. So I'm going to do a wee commit here, I think. Stage all. I'm going to say fixed reading menu items from DB. We'll do something like that. Okay, cool. So, the next thing I want to do, I've got adding items working here. This appears to be working. There it is. Let's do another. So that's all looking pretty good. I'm going to refresh. Go back in. Yeah, everything about that's looking really, really great. So now I want to update the prices. Now, okay. Well, this is a bit tricky. So let's see if we can figure this one out. If we right click and inspect on the update button here, you can see that it calls open item modal. So we're going to have a wee look at open item modal. Just going to do a site-wide search for open item. Okay, so here it is here. It's at line 184. This is it here. Now everything appears to be good when it's an ordinary one. You can see that I obviously ran into trouble here. So if the item ID is greater than 0, then we should really populate this form. Now let's see if we can figure this one out. I'm going to just write the words repopulate form and then comment this out. That's all we're doing. Okay. So, keeping an eye on the console here. Okay, I've got a whole load of console logs I want to get rid of. Okay. Alright, I've still got some stuff I want to get rid of. Okay. Alright, so when I hit add new menu item, that appears and it's no big deal. When I hit update, it says repopulate form. Now, let's have a closer look at this add an item thing. So it's open item modal. Here it is right here. Okay. So, what's it doing? It's getting rid of an error message. It's opening up a modal, setting a few titles and whatnot, and that's pretty much all it does. That is all it does. Okay. Okay. Now, on this sortable categories thing, okay, I'm seeing a thing called menu item ID. Menu item ID. Now, I'm going to go like this and refresh. And I've set an interval here that says menu item ID is 0. When we add a new thing, the menu item ID is still 0. Right. So what I would like to do is I'm going to just say that the menu item ID equals the item ID. So it's 0. But when we go like this, now the menu item ID is 11. Okay. Now let's refresh. I'm going to click this. The menu item ID is 12. Perfect. So what's happened there is it has queried the database table for the menu item ID of 12, and it's brought that stuff up, which is pretty good. Now the only other thing is, if we take one that's got special prices like this, now have a look at the code here. Okay. I think there's an issue with this price system thing. So here's what's going to happen. Inside each of these table rows, there is a hidden div which I added, which has an ID of item data and then the ID. So if I go like this, then let me just console.log item object. Alright, I'm going to click in here and here. Now, if we expand, okay. So you can see, now again, I'll just inspect this thing. Okay, let me copy that element. Have a little paste here. Okay, take a wee trip to our best JSON viewer. Alright. Okay, so the question is there anything here that can help us to identify what that drop down should be at? I'm talking about this drop down here for the price system. And based on what I can see here, the giveaway is the special prices thing. If the special prices length is greater than 0, if that array has stuff in it, we can reasonably assume that it must be special pricing that they're using. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to say special prices is that, and I'm going to console.log special prices length is, and we're going to say special prices dot length. That's all we're looking for here. So let's go back and refresh, keep an eye on the console. Now when I click on the first item, the length should be 0. It says special prices length is 0. Now I'm going to click on this one and it says special prices length is 3. That's really good, right? So I'm going to say if special prices dot length is greater than 0. So what we're going to do? Well, we have to dynamically select this. So let's just see if we can figure out a way to do this. I'm going to say document get element by ID price system ID value is, and that one is the value of 2. I have no idea if that'll work, by the way, but let's just try it. Be lucky if it does. Well, it does work. It's changed it to special prices. Now if this is not the case, we can change that to 1. So let me just demonstrate this. The first item does not have special prices. You can see it says normal price system. The second item, it says special prices. The third one, we're back to normal. This fifth one, special prices. Perfect. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to repopulate the form. I'll just do these first few text fields here, or the first few form fields. So here you can see our first item has been populated, everything here looks beautiful. Let's do it with the second item. There's the second item, and I can see that says update menu item here. Everything looks good. Perfect. If we create, everything looks good. Yep, that's looking great. Now the next thing is, when we hit next here, I want this thing to be populated. So this thing has an ID of item price. Now, instead of just blindly adding it on, I'm going to only add it if it's this type of situation here. So the name of the field is item price, or at least that's the ID of that form field. So item price, and I'm going to say that the value is the item object dot item price. Oh, correction, it's just called price. There you go. Okay, so what that means is that if we go in here and update this one, you can see it says normal price system, and when I hit next, you can see that it says 77. That is perfect. Now, if we go to this one here that says special prices and then hit next, this thing pre-populates because this is reading from a database. So, as mad as it may seem, that's that bit sorted. Time for another little checkpoint here. Okay, so that is a populating of update forms now working. Perfect. So we're going to commit that one. I'll send it up to the sky. Alright. So now, I suppose the next thing to do is to work on actual updates, you know. I have no clue if this is going to work. Let's just see. Okay, so it definitely does not work. As you can see, that just inserted a new item, which is kind of duff, right? So let's see if we can figure out how to fix that. Now, if we right click on this submit button here, it goes to submit item. And if we've got a special price and we right click on this submit one, it also goes to submit item, right? So all roads lead to submit item. Now let me clean the code up here. So here is submit item, right? And what I want to do is, if you look at this sortable categories, we've got a variable called menu item ID here. So we can say console.log submitting, and we know that there's going to be something there. So if I take a brand new item here, here comes a new item, right? So new item, I'll go like this, hit submit, and you can see that it says submitting 0. Now, as you can see, the URL here that this is sending to is this API create menu items. Let's have a wee look at that. Now you can see that this has got a before hook and it's got an after hook here. Let's just see what that's doing. So the before hook is called pre-insert. And what does it do? Well, it basically seems to be getting the items, does a wee bit of form validation, and all of that stuff. It makes sure that there's not another item with the same title, you know. Okay, so basically what this is doing is it's effectively just cleaning it all up, you know? That's what it does. Now, if we look at the thing that's getting posted here, we know that we've got a menu item ID, but we're not actually posting a menu item ID here. So let's see what else happens. We post a bunch of stuff, and then it clears the form and then adds to the row. Okay. And if there's an error, it displays the error. Right, that all makes sense to me. But the challenge is that it's not updating it. So let's take a wee look at the API Explorer here for menu items. Now here's the create endpoint. It's API create menu items. Let's go to the update one. So if you look at the URL, it's API update menu items and then the ID. This is absolutely critical. So here's what we're going to do. You see this target URL here? We're going to say if menu item ID, so this variable up here, if the menu item ID is greater than 0, then our target URL, it's going to be the update URL. Otherwise, it's the create URL. Now what's nice about this is that I don't need to add that update ID onto the parameters. I can keep that as it is. So if I just go like this, and then I'm going to just say API update, right? Now I'm looking at this thing here, and then the idea is that we just say / and we pass in that all important menu item ID like that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just console.log the target URL and then hit return. Nice and slow and nice and easy. So if we refresh here, now if we create a new item, so here we go, some new item, right? Here's a new item. I'm going to hit submit, and there's our target URL, API create menu items. That's fine. Now let's do that again, but this time we're going to update an item. So I'll hit update here. I'll go like that, and I'm going to hit submit, and you can see that it says API update menu items, and then we've got an ID. That is fantastic. Alright, so that means that we're now using our update endpoint here. So the next thing I'm going to do is go to this API.json thing, and I want to just make sure that the update thing works. So for example, I can see we've got a before hook and an after hook. What does the after hook do? Post insert? I have no clue. Let's have a wee look. So we'll go to menu items. I'm going to have a look at post insert. What does it do? What does it do? Oh, it adds special prices. Right, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. So it does that. Now I have an important question. What does the API Explorer normally do whenever you do an update? Shall we find out? Oh, you miserable such and such. Right, here we go. So here's our first item, let's say, right? Which is an ID of 11. Now I'm going to go here. I'm going to put in an ID of 11. And I'm just going to say first item updated. That's all I'm going to do here, right? Now let's try that. Okay, so it says no authorization rules have been declared. That's fine. So in the same way that create has got, oh, authorization of all. Well, I'm glad I checked that. Of course, it's authorization of admin. There you go. So now I'm going to go to the update one. Same story here. Alright. So now we're going to go back. We'll bypass authorization. We'll hit submit. Now, very fortunately for us, it's returning the item data, and I'm really glad to see that, you know. So that's good. That's really good. So what I'm going to do with that then is basically just put it through probably a before hook and an after hook. If we look at the create one, it goes through a before hook called pre-insert. Let's have a little look at that, right? So it's menu items, pre-insert. Now what's it doing? It's looking for some required variables. It's trying to build up an array of errors. And then it's setting some variable types and a few bits and pieces like that, okay? It's almost perfectly reusable, apart from a few things like for example, make sure there's not another item from this category with the same title. There's a few wee things like that that I'm not sure if I like. But it's not too bad, you know. So let's have a wee look at this. The bit that concerns me is make sure there's not another item with the same title. So what's this doing? It's saying select all from menu items where the title is that, and if the rows are greater than 0, then duplicate item title. Now that is going to cause a problem for us, because if we're doing an update, then of course there's going to be something with the same item title. So that is a problem. And then we've got this deal with things and all of that stuff. So here's what I think I'm going to do. Let me think here. Right. On this before hook here, I think I'm going to add this onto the update one. Right, so we'll go like that, and we'll go like that, okay? So that means that when we do an update, it's going to go through this before hook here. So I'm going to say hello before hook and do a die statement. So if I go back here and bypass authorization, hit submit. Okay, we've got some missing posted variables, but that's good. That actually means that this is doing its job. This is 100% doing its job. It's running through and it's saying, hey man, you're missing some posted variables. Perfect. If I had said hello before hook up here, bypass authorization, hit submit, it says before hook. It's perfect, right? Now let's try something. Echo segment 3 die. Okay, I hope this does something. It says menu items. Alright, that's kind of good. Let's try echo segment 4 die. So again, I'm going to go like that. Now it says 11. Okay, so now I'm going to say update ID is segment 4, and then I'm going to say set type update ID integer, So that means that I've now got this update ID here. If I run this thing and hit submit, okay, now I can actually just say the update ID is, here we go. So it says the update ID is 11. I'm going to do a create thing here, and I'm going to go like that, and there it says the update ID is 0. Now that is perfect. That means that regardless of whether we are doing an update or a create, we will have an update ID. So what we're going to do then is we're going to say, the only bit that concerns me is this part here, right? So I'm going to say here, if the update ID, let's do greater than 0, right? So make sure no other item has this title. From this menu category, okay. Make sure no other item from this menu category has this title. Otherwise, now that's a new record, of course. So go like that. And we'll maybe go like that, and there you go. This is always the clever part, man. If you can handle the basic explanation of what the thing's going to do, then you should be cool, you know. So let's see if we can figure out how this could work. Okay, so in either scenario, we are going to have these parameters, that's for sure. Okay, in either scenario, we will have those parameters. If it's a new record, then our SQL will be that. So new record, there's the SQL, and you can see that we're calling upon an item title. It's a named parameter, a menu category ID, right? That's called a named parameter. So two parameters, that is going to be perfect. But now we're going to do a slightly different query for situations where it's an update. Where it's an update, we're going to say select all from menu items where title is that, and category ID is that, and ID does not equal update ID. That's pretty much the main difference. Now, because I've added a new parameter here, it means that in this little if statement here, we are going to have to say params update ID equals update ID. And there you go. But apart from that, that should now work. Everything about that should work. Dealing with errors, all the rest of it, and it returns the input. It's fantastic. Now I've called it pre-insert, which is fine. I mean, I suppose I could rename it or something. And then after it, it looks like I'm running a thing. If I go to create again, so here's create, it looks like I've got a thing called post insert. So let's go to menu items. Let's have a look at what post insert does. So it looks like it's basically just fetching the other prices, and I quite like that, you know. So I'm going to copy this after hook that says post insert. Now, even though it's an update, I don't care. I'm happy with it. I'm happy. I mean, maybe I could rename the functions. I don't know. But I think that should be good. I think it should be good. And now, quite bravely, I'm going to go back here and give this a try. So let's go to this fourth item, and I'm going to change it to fourth item, all the X's. Submit. Ah, right, that's good. Now, that's a bit of a concern actually. Ah, right. Well, that's interesting. So that did actually update the table. It's just that if I just show you what's happening here. Okay, if we go to menuitems.js, so when we submit this item here, we know that the URL could be different, right? And what's happening here is it's adding the menu item to the row, and then it's building this menu items table. So that's basically what's happening. So when we submit it, regardless of what is coming, well, it gets its response from the database and it's adding the item to the row, right? Or it's building a menu items table. Now let me look at build menu items table here. Okay, so that is quite literally just building that. Here's a thing that says destroy menu items tables. I'm going to do something a little bit crazy. I want to go to the submit item thing. And let's see here. Okay. So here it's resetting the form. But what I'm going to do, I think, is just do that and then hit return. So what this means is that our table should disappear, which is kind of horrifying, but let's just see how this works out. So I'm going to hit next, I'm going to hit submit. Right, the table has disappeared. Now, let's look at build menu items table. What does that do? It builds an item and it adds, right, okay. So now let's look at, do we have a thing for fetch? No. Okay, let me see. Okay. I want to see if I can get it to just rebuild the table, you know? Okay. So, menu category ID. Alright. So here's what we'll do. I'll go back. Right. So at this point here, we destroy the menu thing and then we can fetch the items. So what we could potentially do is we could say if the menu item ID is greater than 0, then we're going to do this stuff. Now it's a wee bit more work for the server, but who cares? It's not really going to be an issue for this particular site. But here, if it's a new row, okay, so I'll leave in a couple of comments. I'll say updated row, repopulate entire table. And here, I'm going to say new row, build onto table. Okay, I'm going to save it. We're going to refresh. Okay, so here we go then, right? So here's our fourth item. I'm going to update it. I'll add in a little update. I'm going to hit submit. And there it goes. It completely worked. Right, that was good. Now I'm going to change the price. I'll go to 49. And that worked. That's excellent. Right, let's just bring back the data to its original state. There's our 3 items. So I'm going to add an item now. I'm just going to say fourth item. I'll just say fourth item description. I'll say optional note for fourth item. We are going to use the normal price system. I'll say that this thing is 99. So there's our fourth item that has now been added. I'm going to add a fifth item. So I'm going to say fifth item. Ahoy. I'm going to say here is a description for item 5. I know there's typos. Optional. Now we're going to have a special prices thing. And I'm just going to say AAA is that. BBB is that. And CCC is that. I'm going to hit submit. Okay, so that's all looking great. Now let's go back to the fourth item. We'll imagine that there's been a little special offer. The price is now going to be 81, let's say. 81. Submit. There it is. It's absolutely perfect. I'm going to refresh. I'm going to go back in. Beautiful. On the fifth item, let's assume there's been a mistake there. We're going to update. We're going to go in. See how that says 3334? Let's remove that. And we're going to say CCC. It's 333. Add it. Submit. Oh, it's so damn good. It's so good. And then we are just going to remove. And now the menu items are going to be clear. And the menu item special prices are also clear. Well done me. Alright. So there we have it. So full menu items CRUD, including special prices now working. We're going to stage that. Do a wee commit. Send it up to the sky. And there we go. Alright. Not too bad. That's not too bad. So now with that done, I'm just going to do a wee bit of cleaning up here. And all that means is just getting rid of some console.logs. Can take this one out as well. Oops. I think that's it. Okay, so there we go. Now that is one of the most difficult JavaScript pages I've ever worked on. And I'll tell you something else. It's actually got a wee bit to go. It does indeed have a wee bit to go. All right. Okay, well that was pretty good though, you know. I feel quite good about that. That was a wee bit of bug fixing and I think it went pretty well, you know. Yeah, it's good. It's definitely good. Second item updated. I'm going to hit next. I'm going to hit submit. And look at that. I mean, it's just perfect. It's absolutely perfect. I am at the top of my game. Alright, well, hello folks, and I apologise for neglecting the room there. I can see that we have all the heavyweights in today. Our secret millionaire gear is here, Apophis is here, Simon, nice to see you, and Jim, who says, I hope you're getting a bit more rest and relaxation. Well, it's not that easy. Unfortunately, I have to pay the rent, so I need to do little jobs and things from time to time, and this is one, and it's just gone on and on. I have some nerve calling it Speed Coding Academy. As I've always said, for some reason, I'm just not quite as fast at JavaScript as I would like to be. But that's fine, you know. I mean, if it works, then I suppose that's cool. Keep in mind, this is all drag and droppable. So I'm going to go like that and refresh it. There it is there. Now I've got one more thing that I want to do to this before it's finished, and it's a major thing, and I don't know if I want to do it right now or just call this thing done. I think that might actually be it, but I would like to make it so that you can drag the table rows about. Now that sounds kind of crazy, right? But I think it's doable. So here's how that would potentially go. Right. Okay, we've got a thing here for building a menu items table. And then we've got this menu items body. I'm going to try a little experiment. If I say UI sortable and refresh, bring this up here, expand. Oh, maybe not, maybe not. All right. Damn. Right, let's keep on going. Let's inspect this. Okay. So UI sortable handle. What the hell is that all about? Right, that's an icon. Classes node. Okay. So if I add a class of node on here, refresh this. Nope. I know it's unusual, but I want to be able to drag around inside the table as well. And I know that I can do this. It's really quite tricky and quite unusual, but I've done it before. I've done it using Angular. So give me just a wee minute. I am going to see if I can figure this out. It would be a really fantastic way to wrap this thing up. So, back in a wee tick. I just need to refer to something here. Alright. Okay. Give me just a wee second here. So I'm looking at an Angular version of this that does what I'm trying to do, and I'll show you what it looks like. So here's the Angular version. Now I can grab these rows and move them. The performance is not great, but it does seem to work. Now the question is, how is that possible? Well, let's see if we can figure it out. Now that says sortable -3. Okay. And then we've got a class of sort with sortable -3. Right, okay, so let's just copy this whole table, copy that element, and we'll take it into the lab and see what we can notice. Alright, now the first thing that I can do is take a trip to my new favourite website, and let's just beautify this HTML here. Okay, here we go. And I'm looking for patterns to just see how this is done. Now here I'm seeing it says sortable and then a hyphen. That's really strange. This is saying sort and then it's saying sortable 3. Okay, that's on our ng row. Alright, well, I have no idea, but okay, let's go to the menu items table here, and I'll just add in sortable 3. I know it's a bit stupid, but let's just try that, right? So sortable 3, I'm adding that class to the table name, which is precisely what happened here. Then it's going to the table rows and it's adding 2 classes on. So let's go to the table rows. Okay. Now, what we got here? Well, there's our item row tag. And the 2 things that it's adding are sort and then sortable -3. So I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go like that. Going to save it. Alright, expectation of success, smile, behave as if it's already working. Okay, it's not already working, so let's inspect this. Now, here's our table. Here's our thing here. Now that does say sort and sortable -3. So we did everything right, but for some reason it just never quite worked. So, what now? Well, let's take one that does work. The general menu system works. How did we get it working? Let's have a look. Okay, so I'm seeing a class of UI sortable. Let's bring in, for the table, a class. I'll do it right here. A class of UI sortable. Is that how we write it? Yep. So we put in a class of UI sortable. Then I can see that it's saying here we've got a class of node. What the hell? Alright, let's just chuck that in. Have a wee refresh. Damn. Okay, well that's a bit of a drag. Okay, let's go here. Okay. All right. I'm probably going to have to do a research for this. So let's have a look here. I'm using jQuery UI sortable. I think that's the name of it. Or is it this one? Aye, that kind of looks like it. But that is not the kind of page that I want to see here. So look at this. Look at this. Right. So that could be our answer. The answer appears to be that we need to run a wee function at the bottom of this page that basically brings everything to life, you know? So let me show you what I mean. This thing here is all happening on this page here. You can see, you miserable such and such. Okay, let's look at this sortable thing again. Sortable. Here we go. Sortable, right. Here's our sortable thing. Here's our modal. Here is a wee bit of code. Right, there's something on the page, and I don't know where, but there's something here that's effectively bringing all of this to life. I know that it has to be here. So I'm looking for just a wee line of code, you know, something like few lines. There you go. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about right there, okay? Now let's copy that, have a closer look at it. So, what are we saying? It seems to be looking at an ID and it's saying, this is sortable. Okay, so let's try an experiment then. Let's go to the bit with building the table again. So here is our menu table thing. Now, supposing this is add a row to the table. So we add on rows. There we go. Now suppose we then go like that. And effectively, well, even damn. Right, one moment. Let's look at this table again. Right. So here's our table. It's the menu items table. So I'm going to say menu items table, set attribute ID, menu items table. Right, I haven't done anything there apart from adding on an ID. So I'm going to right click and inspect. And I can see that the ID says menu items table. Now let's try a little experiment. Let's say set timeout and I'll wait 2 seconds. after 2 seconds, I'm going to say that menu items table is sortable. Place your bets. Oh, well, that's kind of promising. Okay, now that was our ID of menu items table. That was us doing it, adding an ID onto the table. Let's assume that we never added it to the table. Let's assume that we added it to the table body. So I'm going to say menu items t body set attribute ID, and I'll just say menu items table body. Why not, right? So now we're going to say menu items table body is sortable. Here we go. I'll do a little console.log boom, so I know that this is kicked in. So I'm going to refresh, go like that. Up in the top right it says boom, and now, as you can see, hallelujah. So I'll move the second item to the bottom. Well, it's a wee bit fiddly, but it does work. Now that is fantastic. That is absolutely fantastic. So now that I've got that figured out, an interesting question is, do I need to even do a set timeout? So let's take the set timeout away. Save it. Go like that. So I'm going to go like this, and immediately, yes we can. Oh yes we can. Now let's add in a fourth item. And as you can see, it's 100% doable. So that, my friends, is a drag and drop within a drag and drop. Don't you tell me I can't do JavaScript, you know. That's pretty cool. I'm loving that. Alright, so there we go. So I'll do a wee comment here. Make the table rows sortable. One thing I'll say about jQuery, you know, you may love it, you may hate it, but jQuery is so robust, man. It works everywhere. It works everywhere. Stefan, it's nice to see you. And he's gone. Here comes Ed. It's nice to see you, Ed. Welcome, welcome. Look at the time. It's coming up for 8 p.m. in the UK. I had no idea. Dan's stuff is here. And a few other folks, some new names. The great El Chanel is here. And NRN. NRN. Anybody know what that stands for? Anyway, R.I.P. Terry Davis. I think we can all get into that. The great Dan Stuff is here. Dafa Apophis, they're all here. All of the heavyweights are here. How on earth are you doing, you crazy rock and rollers? It's very nice to see you all. Yeah, this is quite good. And hello to you, Jerry. Nice to see you as well. I hope everything's doing okay over there. I've seen on the news it looks like Europe's going a bit mad right now. I know that Derek was at a protest of some sort yesterday, but I just hope everything turns out okay. Yeah, the thing about jQuery is jQuery kind of ruined Stack Overflow, because every time you see a JavaScript question, somebody answers by talking about jQuery. However, the one thing I can tell you for a fact is that jQuery works everywhere. jQuery works on BlackBerry devices and everything, you know. It's a really, really solid and well-tested thing. So all I have to do as far as this page goes is build something, build an endpoint that receives the priorities of the items here. So if I take you to the menu items, I'll show you what I mean. So here's my menu items, right? Each item has got a priority. I'm actually kind of wondering how... Oh, I'm kind of a wee bit... Right, hold on a minute. Let's reset the decks. Let's just refresh. Let's open this thing up. Right, okay, so here we've got 3 test items. Now, if we look at them from a database perspective, you'll see that we've got 3 items with priorities of 1, 2, and 3. Now, what we really want to do is, well, let's try an experiment. Suppose we change the priority to 4 here for the first item, right? So the priority is now being changed to 4. The first thing I want is for that item to show up last. And it does not. So that's not too cool, you know. That is definitely not too cool. So before I do anything to do with sorting and all of that stuff, what I have to do is look at the bit that is fetching the items for the menu category here. You can see that it's at this API get menu items thing, right? So again, if we go like this, and you can see that the before hook is a thing called check for special prices. So if we go like this, check for special prices. Now, what is this doing? It's doing select all, where, and then you can see it's ordering by menu items ID. Well, we know that that's wrong. It should actually order by menu items priority, right? So let's save that, go back. We're going to open up this little beauty, and now the first item is shown up last, and it's fantastic. Furthermore, if we look at this thing, well, it's really looking just perfect, in fact, you know. So the next thing that we want to do is, just after this has made itself sortable, so you see how these rows can be dragged about. Well, there's something else that we should do here, and it's probably right. So right here, after we've made everything sortable, we're gonna do a little set timeout, and we'll wait like maybe about half a second, right? So about half a second, and then we're going to call remember table row positions. That's going to be the name of this one, right? Now, we do already have one. We do already have one of these called remember positions, which lives here. Hold on. If I do a search for n remember, yeah, so on, where on earth is it? On menu categories.js, we have got a little function by the name of remember positions. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to take it to our menu items.js, and I'm going to paste it right here. Okay, and by the way, I can see that in this one they added the set. I've added the set timeout inside the function itself, and that's not a bad idea, so I'll do that here again. Okay, so we draw the table, and then half a second later we're going to have remember table row positions. There it is, right around there. Okay, now what I'm going to do with this one is, I don't like pasting in tons of code and then it works. It just makes me really nervous, you know. So I'm just going to console.log remembering table row positions. That's all we're looking for today. So here we go. And there it is. Okay, now when we drop one of these things like this, and we drop I want it to remember the positions when that event happens as well. So I'm going to look for this. Okay. Okay, so check this out. I'm going to copy this and let's go back here. Right, so this wee line of code right around here, if I put in the ID and then do remember table row positions, something like that. Now I'm gonna go like, I'll take this out and I'll take this out. Okay, now let's just refresh here. Go like that. So remember table row positions, and I'm going to drag and drop, and you see that it says remember table row positions. Let's do it again. Remember table row positions. Now let's add a fourth item here. Oops, did that work? Okay, so there's a new item added. Now I'm going to drag that one to second place, and you'll see that every time it says remember table row positions. So what that means is that we remember the table row position. Well, here we're making it sortable, and here we are gonna add event listener so that positions get remembered when a row is dropped. That's what that's doing there. That's all that's doing, okay? So we do that. Alright, so we've now got that happening. So now, what we want to do is, I'm going to go through the code here, and I could probably uncomment it and do a tweak and it would work, but again, that makes me nervous. So let's do this really, really slowly. The very first thing that we're going to do is isolate the table row here. Now, or the table body rather. Now the good thing about it is that we do have an ID. So we can go like this. We can say var table body, or even var parent element. Now I've got a wee shortcut thing happens there when I do that. So it's document get element by ID, that, right? And then I'm going to say that the children, I'll do it right here, var children equals the parent element dot children. Now we are going to console.log children dot length. If it says 3 or 4, then that's a really, really good sign. So let's just try that. So we're going to open this up. Okay, so it's saying cannot read children of null. Alright, let's go up here. Okay, now did you see how it says 4? Well, that's good, right? That's good. Yeah, that's really good actually. Now, let's just console.log type of parent element. So when we expand, the type of parent element is an object. When we expand here, that's unfortunate. Okay, so we're probably going to have to count the table rows or something like that before this thing works. So let's say there's a little class there. Alright, so what we could do is we could say var table rows is document get element by class name, item table row. Now I'm going to console.log table rows length is, and I'm going to add on the table rows dot length. Let's get rid of this stuff. I wonder if that'll work. So if I go like that, table rows length is 4, that's good. Now I'm going to go like that. Table length rows is 0, right? That's excellent. So that's kind of cool, because now we can say if the table rows dot length is greater than 0, then and only then we have a gig. So I'm going to take all of this junk here and chuck it in here, because there's no point in doing anything if we don't have actual table rows, you know. So we'll go like that. Right, now let's see if we can make this happen here. We're going to go something like this. And okay, so what it seems to be doing here is it's building up an array of child nodes. So I'm going to console.log child nodes is, and I'm going to console.log json.stringify child nodes. All right, so here we go. We're going to expand this little beauty. Okay, so where it says children here, I'm going to change that part to say table rows. Here we go again. So we're opening it. There you go. Now you can see a couple of interesting things here. The ID is empty. We've got a menu ID. Okay, that's something, but it's not quite getting us where we want to be. What I really want to do here is on each item table row, I would really like to add in some kind of ID. However, there is another thing that we could do. We could look for, here's what we could do. We could look for a class of item data row, which we have got. Now if I go like that, okay, now this is kind of interesting, because here we've now got these IDs. So that's really interesting. If I copy this and then head to our best JSON viewer and put that in, now you can see that we've got an ID. So this is basically our item ID. Then we've got our priority coming in here, and that is fantastic, absolutely fantastic, because now what we can do is, you see how we've got a thing that says menu categories, remember positions. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to uncomment this, and we're going to go to menu items, remember positions. So right now there is no remember positions here, but if we open up menu categories, we probably have remember positions. Here it is here. We've got a wee bit of API authorization. I like it a whole lot. And let me just quickly look at menu categories, assets, API. I'm going to look for, here's our thing here. So let's go to menu items. We'll chuck it right in here. There you go. So this is going to take us to menu items, and it's going to say remember positions of some items, of some menu items, let's say. Whoop. There you go. Now, we've added some authorization, so that means that we're going to be secure. And over here, well, we're just about ready to go. What I think I'd like to do is just echo hello DC with a die statement. That's right, I'm a crazy rock and roller and I like to go slow. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to say a little console.log with a bunch of these, then a little console.log with a token, then a console.log with a target URL, then a console.log with the stuff that is being sent across. There it is right there. Now, let me go like this. Let me go like this. And let me add return here, because I don't want it to actually process it. All I want to do is see on the screen exactly what is being sent across here. So if we go like that, and we go like that, right there you go, right there. So I'm going to copy the URL, head into Postman, go like that. I can see that we've got a token. I can copy that, chuck this in, and finally here's the stuff that got posted. So I can grab that, chuck it in here, and now I'm going to hit send. And you see that it says hello DC, and that is absolutely perfect. So now instead of saying hello DC, I am going to var dump child nodes with a die statement. This is going to just give me a wee idea of what we're dealing with. I can see that it's an array, and it's an array of objects. We've got an ID, we've got a priority, and then we've got a menu ID. So what I'm going to do with this, you can see we've got a thing here that says prep ID. Now I don't think I need that. I'm going to say JSON child node comma true. So back over here, send, and you can see we've got this vibe going on, right? So I'm going to say ID. Yeah, so the ID, let's just say that the ID is child node loading up ID. And I'm going to echo that ID out with a die statement. Everything I'm doing is slow, you know, but I kind of like doing that sometimes. So item data 13, right? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to say item ID is string replace item data hyphen, replace it with nothing, and we're going to do that on the ID. And this time I'm going to echo out the item ID with a die statement. And that gives us 13. If you want to be totally proper, you can say set type. You don't really need to do this, but there's a movement in web development towards declaring types for everything. I'm not sure if it's a good idea or not, but let's just do it to keep the aficionados happy. So if we var dump the item ID now, hit send, you can see that we've now got an integer of 13, and that is fantastic. Alright, now I probably don't need this I don't need this menu ID. And I can see that we've got a priority. If I just echo priority with a die statement. Now it should say 1, 2 or 3. Bottom left it says 1, right? I'm curious. I wonder what type that will be coming in at. Well, it says it's an integer. Okay, that's cool. Alright, so we've now got an item ID and we've got a priority. Now, what is happening here is we're going to just say if not is numeric item ID, or if not is numeric priority die, so it means that duff information has been sent. But if everything is cool, we're going to say, and I'm smiling because I've nailed this, we're going to say update menu item set priority equals priority, and then we're going to say where ID is item ID. There you go. And now, with great confidence, we're going to now just go right back here and do a little save. So here's our orders, right? You can see, and I'll refresh again. You can see that the second item's at the top. I'm going to drag it to position 3. So there it's position 3. I'm going to refresh. I'm going to open it up. You miserable swine. Ah, do you know what that is? We know what that is. That is because we said return here. If I take this out, save. Right, here we go again. So we're opening it up. Here's our second item. I'm dragging it to position 3. We're going to drop. Okay, we're going to refresh. Let's open it again. Thank you very much indeed. God bless America. Your applause is most welcome. It's now remembering the positions. For the first time in the history of YouTube, we have a drag and drop within a drag and drop. And what's really cool about this is I'm not using Angular or anything, and it's a whole lot more robust than the last one. So here's the original one again. And if I grab this, it just kind of doesn't look as good. It doesn't snap. You know, this is Angular. It's just too bloated, too slow. It's just not working. It's just, see the wee delay? Look, drop. There's a wee slight delay. So I move this to the top. It's just not quite there. But the new one, look at this. Boom. Do you see how everything snaps into place? It's beautiful. Oh, that's what we're talking about. So just to do one final test, and that will be me for the night, and then I'll talk to you for a minute. To do one last test before we go, I'll just repopulate this thing. So here's our 3 items. I'm refreshing, right? Now, I'm going to change them around. I'll put the second one at the top. I'll put the first one at the end. And I'll refresh. Reloading it, opening it, and there it is. It remembers. Okay, not too bad. Not too bad. And thank you so much for your support and everything being here. Drag and drop now working for menu items. That is a drag and drop within a drag and drop. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much indeed. That is probably the most difficult JavaScript page I've ever worked on. I mean, that is, the query builder took me 5 days, and this took me 5 days, so this was really difficult. It looks easy, doesn't it? It looks easy, but it was so hard, man. It was really difficult. Still a couple of wee bits and pieces I'd like to do, but we don't need to worry about it. The main thing is cool. Thank you so much. You are my motivation. You are my inspiration. Here comes Perkin524. He says, terrific stuff. You know, I think I like the bug identification fixing best of all. Well, thanks very much. Thanks, I appreciate that. I mean, I'm no genius. Like, you should see Derek. I phone Derek sometimes when I need help, and he just looks at it and says it's line 259. I'm like, how the heck does he do that? But I appreciate you saying that. Here comes NRN Photo says, came here after seeing a nice comment of yours about Terry. Ah, right. Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I suppose you must be a programmer or something. Yeah, my plan for this channel, well, I think this is, I don't know, maybe I'm just unpopular or maybe I'm shadow banned, but I don't have too many ambitions with this channel, to be honest. I'm happy with what I've got, you know. I'm grateful. All right. So, it means photo in Romanian, my native language. Well, there you go. I'm an aspiring photographer. Ah, cool. My brother's a photographer, you know. Does it professionally and everything. Cool. He does landscape photography and also property photography, you know, people selling houses and all of that, and it's pretty good work. You'd be surprised. All right, so what else have we got here? Let me just go. Do I wish to make a career out of it in the future? I like going, okay, that's you folks talking. Anything else happening? Anything else? Dan's stuff is here, says David. That's an awesome D&D. I don't know what that means, but thank you. jQuery faster than Angular. I agree, it's bloated. Yep. Well, I don't want to go bashing stuff. I just don't need that energy. There's so much negativity on the news right now. But I'll show you the main difference in case you're wondering, right? If you look at this one is made with Angular. Now, I made this, by the way. Now, I'm going to show you something, right? Do you see how these have all got menu items here? Well, first of all, do you see how slow this is, right? It's really, really slow. And it's got all of these items. Do you see that? Now, if I right-click here and inspect, there's no point in doing view source, right? But if I do an inspect vibe, and then I go like this, and I say copy this element, and then if I go like this to this here, I'm going to paste in, right? Look at the size of this. That is 6,000 lines of code. 6,000 lines of code. And all of those items are here. Do you see it? This is what is happening. This is Angular, right? 6,000 lines of code. Now, compare that to the one that I've just made. You see, if you take this thing here, see when I shrink this down, right, look how slow it is, right? It's so slow. But when I'm shrinking that down, that stuff is still there in the background. It's just that it's hidden. The one I've made here is entirely different. Because with this one, now there's less items for sure. But if I right click and I'll show you the div here. I wonder if you'll appreciate this vibe that I'm giving you. Right, okay, I'll even just take this whole main area here. I'm going to do copy element. Now watch what happens here, right? Now I've only got 156 lines of code, and even if this had 1 million items, it would still be 156 lines of code. Why? Because if I take this one, I'm going to right click and inspect. Now keep in mind that the Angular one had all of the stuff hidden, but look here. Do you see in the top right? It's empty. I don't know if you can see that, but it's empty. So when I go like this and expand, it's building a div dynamically. When I close it, it deletes the div. When I go like this, expand, the JavaScript is building a table. Let me show you this, right? I'm going to right click and inspect. Now look at the top right hand side of the screen, folks. I really want you to get this, right? Nobody is teaching this stuff. So look at the top right hand side. Do you see how we've got a table with all of the items, right? Now I'm going to highlight the table, right? Now keep your eye on the table. I'm going to close the menu. And look, the table has disappeared. It's gone. So what does this mean? Well, it means that because the elements are being destroyed and then created on the spot, what that means is that there's no memory leak, which is a fancy way of saying that this is easy for the browser to handle. And the benefit of that is you get this snappiness. Look, do you see how everything is sharp? Watch the second one jump into place. Look, snaps, snaps. Everything is snappy, right? Everything. Look, same again here. I can even drag this entire category and move it in here. Let's say I can close it. I can do anything you want. How about if we move it away down here? Come on. Sometimes you have to remind the computer. See? Look, I'll move it with it expanded. Now the one that was made with Angular probably would freak out. I've clicked on it because when I close it, it's still in the background. And it's just not as snappy. Look, I'm grabbing it. I'm going to grab. Well, let me see. I need to be careful. Right, if I take this one, if I grab one of these and look, do you see how it's just not as snappy? Do you see that? And you won't notice this, but there's a wee kind of 1/4 of a second delay. Anyway, that's your vibe. Alright. So, yep, I could have done it in normal JavaScript, by the way, but the reason why I never did it in normal JavaScript is because I like the movement of this, and copying the movement would have taken ages of figuring that out. I made a drag and drop thing, but mine was a lot slower, and I like the way that this one moves. So that's jQuery UI. Still good. What else have we got? Do you have a program for your live streams, or you just do them when you feel like them? I usually live stream every day because it motivates me. If I'm live streaming, it's a guarantee that I'm not arguing about politics, I'm not watching the news and getting depressed, and I'm not offending anybody, you know? So I do them every day, and I do it because it motivates me. And it gives me focus. So I'm using OBS, that's right. Maybe if the same can be achieved for Angular. When can we start with your new course to learn this? I like this. Well, it's that's a good point. Okay, so I'll give you a quick and slightly patronising JavaScript lesson that you might want to take on board. So anybody who's a regular to this little stream of mine will know that the most powerful feature in all of JavaScript is what? I always say it. What's the most powerful feature in all of JavaScript? Most powerful feature in all of JavaScript. Come on, folks. No, I don't know. There's a big long delay here. Anyway, while there is a delay, by the way. I'm responding as quickly as I can. It's just that there's a delay. L Channel says it's Black Friday, Dave Conley. Too bad you're no longer allowing new subscribers to your courses. It would be a good time now to join with all the sale. Yeah, I've decided as far as sales goes, I've thought about this long and hard, and I've said I'm going to do a promo and I'm not going to do a promo and everything. I've made my mind up about this. I'm never going to do a sale ever. I'm never ever going to do any discounts ever. I don't care you know, who you are or anything. This is my vibe. I want to and that's not an original thing. Apple do that, you know. Doesn't matter where you go and buy an iPad, the price is the same everywhere, and I kind of like that. I think everybody's a bit sick of promos and stuff, you know. So I'm just a straight up dude. I charge $4.50, and if you've got it, I'm so grateful, but if you haven't, then I hope maybe someday we can do something else. Yeah, that's right. The most powerful feature in all of JavaScript is set timeout. Congratulations. I think a few of you's got that. Set timeout is the most powerful feature in all of JavaScript. Now, if you look up on Google, what does set timeout do? Everybody is going to say that it's got something to do with a time delay. That's how people think about this. And forgive me if I'm being patronising. I know that I am to the regulars here, right? But here we are on Google. A number represent the time to wait until executing the code, you know. Everybody thinks about set timeout in terms of the set timeout, it executes after a specified number of seconds. This is not how I would define set timeout. My DC definition for set timeout is it creates a parallel thread. Now there's threads and there's asynchronous code and all sorts of crazy terminology, and I'll probably get it wrong. So let's just say it creates a fork in the road, you know? And that makes things incredibly interesting. Let's say, for example, that you're building an app that's going to collect stock market prices and maybe do a little bit of analysis, you know? So you might potentially have some PHP that says something like stock symbols. And imagine you've got a bunch of stocks, and yes, I have built a stock alert app. I did one for the Hit the Bid guy, Kenny Glick, who trades over in New York. And suppose you're going to have some stocks, right? I wonder, you can guess the stock symbol for Apple. I think it's AAPL. And then you've got, I think that's BlackBerry. Anyway, whatever. I can't even remember any other stock symbols. Jeez. Alright. Anyway, imagine you've got these stock symbols and this is PHP, right? And your goal is to fetch the stock prices and then do some analysis, okay? Now with PHP, you could say for each stock symbols as stock symbol, and then you could write a little thing that says fetch the stock price, okay? And that's going to do some stuff, whatever, right? It's going to fetch that price. Now that fetching of the stock price, this might take, let's just say for argument's sake, it takes half a second to fetch that stock price, right? And again, I'm being incredibly patronising to the regulars, and I apologise. But let's say you've got 10 stocks here. You're going to fetch 10 stock prices. Well, how long is this thing going to take to run? Well, you know the answer. 10 prices is going to take, it's going to do them one at a time, let's say, so it's going to take 5 seconds. Now, one of the reasons why PHP gets a lot of criticism is because PHP runs synchronously. What that means is it does one thing at a time. So PHP is going to say, okay, let's get the price for Amazon. Reads it, comes back, 1 second has passed. Then it says, let's get the price for Apple. Okay. 1 second, half a second's passed, right? Now a second's passed. Now let's get the price for BlackBerry, and there you go, right? This is one of the biggest criticisms of PHP. However, if you take the stock symbols and you turn it into an array, let's say, something like data stock symbols, and then you pass it into a view file, well, now life can get interesting, because in our view file we can switch to JavaScript. So imagine we're now looking at JavaScript here, and in JavaScript you can still do a for loop. The syntax is exactly this, well, similar, right? So you could say for each of the stock prices, right? I won't bother doing the syntax here, but for each of those stock prices we can do a set timeout and add in 1/1000 of a second. and I'm going to say fetch the stock price. And in fact, I can fetch the stock price from a PHP endpoint on our server. So let's imagine you've got, imagine an endpoint that fetches prices using PHP. Maybe it does something like price is file get contents, and it takes in a URL or whatever it does, right? And it fetches the price. Well, we can then fetch that from PHP, and what will happen is when the page loads, JavaScript is going to go, like, it's going to basically create these new threads. So it's going to have one thread says fetch that, fetch that, fetch that, fetch that, and all of these threads will be set up in 10/1000ths of a second. So what happens is when you combine PHP with JavaScript, as long as you can unleash the power of set timeout, the punchline is that instead of waiting 5 seconds, you can have the stuff coming back in half a second. This is why set timeout is the most powerful feature in all of JavaScript. And it's also why if you can use PHP with JavaScript, you can build anything, you know? And it's kind of quite easy. So the first thing that I would recommend learning with JavaScript is that tune in to set timeout. Set timeout is the most powerful feature in all of JavaScript. Now, the other thing that is worth learning that hardly anybody talks about is dynamically creating elements, you know. So if you take this Angular page here, and I used Angular up until about 3 years ago, and then I realized it was bullshit. In fact, let me just show you the source. I haven't looked at this in years, but I think I know what it's going to say. Let's just have a look. Copy element. Right. So wherever we see ng, it means something. It's something to do with Angular. ng binding, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Anyway, the point is, I haven't really looked at JavaScript for a few years, and I'm going to give that disclaimer. But most of the stuff, and this is probably a bad example, most of the stuff that I look at with Angular doesn't actually remove elements, it just hides elements, you know? But you can actually remove elements. In fact, it's really easy. If you can fetch an element, so you could say var element is, let's say, document.get element by ID, whatever, right? Do you know that you can then say element.remove and it will disappear? I think it's that. That's going to make it disappear. Whereas, so you think about this, right? With vanilla JavaScript, we can do that. But what Angular and so on do is they'll basically, they'll have this going on in the background. But then they'll say .style.display is none. Well, that's not the same. It may look the same, but it's not the same. The difference is that this one is using up a lot of memory, so your pages are going to be slow, whereas this one is fast, you know? And when you're rebuilding a page or rebuilding an element like this one here, did you see how slow it was? That's the Angular one, right? See, it's slow. You can see that it's slow. Look, can you see it? Let me try again. If we go to side orders, let's say, look at how slow everything is. Right, this page is falling apart. Look, slow. Look at this. I'll do it again. Click, waiting. See? Look, I'll do it again. Click. Hello, how are you doing? See? Click, 1. So that's about a second gap. Compare that to just pure vanilla JavaScript. Now, I'm using a bit of jQuery for the sorting business, but the expanding and all of that is just pure vanilla JavaScript. Now watch the difference. We had a 1 second gap with Angular. Here comes pure JavaScript. Click, and it's immediate. There is no delay. We close it. Oops, I actually never clicked the button there. We close it, and look at that. Everything is immediate. Why is it so fast? Because with vanilla, you can destroy elements like that, and then you can create elements dynamically. Now, the downside is the code for this takes ages to write, but it's totally worth learning. Totally worth learning. So, for example, let's create a div, right? So you would say something like var new div is document dot create element, and then you say what the element is. There's my new div. I've just made a div. Let's add it, or let's add a class onto our div. Well, what would that be? New div, set, attribute, class, some class. It's as easy as that. How about let's add an ID. So new div, set attribute, ID. How about an on-click event? Let's add an on-click event. So here we go. New div. You can guess, right? Set attribute, on-click equals maybe a little function in here. And that's pretty much all there is to it. And then let's add our div onto our page. So, alright, so you would say something like the parent element is document, get element by ID or whatever. Or get elements by class name. Maybe you just want to add it onto the body. So we could say, right, let's do that. Now you have to add in a 0 here because get elements by class, or pardon me, by tag name. There you go. So we're looking for a body tag. We're going to get the first body tag. It just so happens there's only one body on most pages. So we'll say 0 here. So that's the parent element. And to add, we would just say parent element dot append child of new div. It takes a long time. I keep saving by accident. It takes a long time to write this code, but it's so worth it, because if you can learn how to dynamically create elements, it's going to give, like, look at this. Watch. Look. See how I'm shuffling entire categories. I'm dragging and dropping within drag and drops. See? This is what you can do. And the reason why that works so well, and it really does work pretty darn well, I think, the reason why that's working is because instead of doing what Angular does, which is hiding and all of this bullshit, instead I'm actually dynamically creating and dynamically destroying elements. Really, really good for memory. And in fact, on the dev tools here, I haven't looked at it for a few years, but you can bring up there's a thing you can bring up. I think it's a chart, and it shows you live how much memory your pages are using. And I guarantee if we looked at this thing is causing issues because it's just so bloated. But this is fast and it's good and it's sharp, you know. Anyway, that's my patronizing little JavaScript spiel. Alright, well, everybody's off. When you do a course, I sign up with you. Thanks for your explanation. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Nested set timeouts. Well, I don't think I even want to think about that, or my head will explode. Folks, it has been a pleasure and a privilege. Now, let me give you a wee update on what's happening with regards to Speed Coding Academy, whilst you're here, I had a vote yesterday. I've got two big problems with, or let's say challenges. I have two challenges with Speed Coding Academy. The first challenge is that there's some video material that really needs to be updated. The second challenge is that all of the videos are really high quality, which means that some people get buffering. And as for me, I have to pay a fortune for hosting. So I had a vote on this yesterday on which of these two things I should fix first. They're both giant, massive jobs. And the decision was made in the group that I should fix the buffering issue first. Fixing the buffering is going to take me a week, because what I have to do, like, did you know that when you go to YouTube and you choose this wee drop down here and you say quality such and such, do you know that it's literally pulling in another video? I bet you never knew. I never knew. So I'm going to have to build one of those, and I'm going to have to figure out how to use Elastic Beanstalk or something like that, or Handbrake, to render all of the stuff in all these different resolutions. So I'm going to have to do that. I'm going to have to build a video player, a brand new video player. I'm going to write some JavaScript that reads the size of the viewer's device. So if somebody is viewing, and check this out by the way, if somebody is viewing on a tiny device like a phone, what's the point in giving them a 2K video? There is no point at all. So I'm going to write a little JavaScript thing that reads the size of their viewport, and it's going to serve them the perfect video when that happens. Now, I've looked around and I haven't really been able to find anything that does this in a super cool way. Code Canyon's got one or two nice video players, but they're a wee bit confusing. And they are $59. Well, I'm going to build my own one, and I'm going to make it as good as any of these, and it's going to take me 1 week. So I'll do that. And for those who are in Speed Coding Academy, once I've built it, you can have it. And that's going to be a cool wee thing. So for the next week, I'm going to be building this. I have not got a clue how to build the darn things. So I'm going to have a day or two of research, and I might not be able to live stream as much as I would like. But I'll keep you posted. And that's what we're going to be doing. Alright. Yeah, I thought it was the same video as well. Anyway, folks, bless you all so much for being here. I appreciate it, and I really, really appreciate the motivation. I'll hopefully pop by tomorrow, but in the meantime, I have to go and build this video player, and it's all a bit boring. I don't really know what I'm doing with it, but hopefully I'll figure it out. Thank you once again for passing by. Stay cool, stay positive, and above all, stay away from the news. It's just miserable, man. It's just miserable. Just stay away from it. I'll talk to you very soon. Cheers.